Now at 9, some new laws are going into effect in Missouri next week. We'll break them down. Plus, a medical facility in Knoll, Missouri is taking steps to make sure Tyson workers losing their jobs are supported.
The heat wave in our area may be coming to a close, but we're talking about why you still need to remain cautious. I'm Anthony Saviello with the story.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Tanya Bach. A jury verdict leads to a $33 million award for the family of a man who died while he was an inmate at the Ottawa County, Oklahoma jail. The case dates back to October of 2015 when Terrell Ellis turned himself in at the jail for a DWI warrant. Court documents indicate he was apparently in good health at the time. 12 days later, surveillance equipment recorded Ellis repeatedly complaining of pain and begging for help as jail staff mocked him. Court documents say the jail's nurse refused to help him and that Integris EMS workers failed to take Ellis to the hospital. Nearly 6 hours after his first pleas for help, Ellis was found cold and unresponsive. The medical examiner determined Ellis died of septic shock and pneumonia. In awarding the Ellis estate $33 million, the jury determined Ellis was denied his constitutional right to medical care. You can see and hear some of those 2015 surveillance clips on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Well, temps may be cooling, but it's still important to take precaution. KOAM's Anthony Saviello tells us more.
With a late summer heat wave impacting the 4 states, we spoke with some medical experts on why it's important to be careful outside.
Long exposure to heat is an issue to the body because it causes the core temperature to raise. As our core temperature raises, it makes it harder for our bodies to perform its physiological function correctly. And as it continues to raise upwards of like 104 degrees Fahrenheit, it can become an issue in terms of health and heat illness.
Something that Mercy Hospital's Libby Clark is familiar with seeing in patients during the summer.
Well, what we've been seeing a lot, the most severe cases are people that are just extremely dehydrated. It's dangerous because you can do permanent damage to your kidneys. We'll see a couple, 2, 3 of those a day. Some of them sick enough to go into the ICU.
But now that the heat is projected to die down, it doesn't mean that precautions should.
Even at those relatively like what we would love for right now, cool temperatures, with a high humidity level, they can still be detrimental and dangerous. Especially for people who are in a like elderly population, they're even more at risk for these complications.
If you are out, you need to be drinking 10 to 20 ounces of water every 30 minutes to an hour, and you need to be rotating that with some sort of a sports drink that has electrolytes.
However, those drinks shouldn't be high in sugar content.
So even though this summer heat may soon start to die down, it's important to stay hydrated, stay in the shade, and keep yourself safe and healthy. Reporting in Pittsburgh, I'm Anthony Saviello, KOAM News.
Experts also emphasize keeping an eye on your children and animals. If you want to be updated on the latest weather info, be sure to download the KOAM Skywatch weather app. And I am definitely for a break from the heat. And here with the latest update, of course, we have meteorologist Sam Lane joining us with a first look at your forecast.
Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, I think that's 100% across the entire 4-state area, especially after this week. We do have some moisture in the air right now, so that's kind of a foretaste of what's to come as the remnants of Harold is now moving up through the Central Rockies. It's going to turn the corner around this ridge and then come back into our area as we go into the weekend, and that means cooler temperatures and rain chances. Temperatures dropping through the 80s tonight to about 76 by tomorrow morning. And looking down the lane, we are definitely going to have another hot Friday, but there are some weekend rain chances and much cooler next week. And I'll tell you about that as well as the drought situation. And we'll have all that in your forecast and more coming up in just a little bit. Tanya?
All right, thanks, Sam. There are some new laws in Missouri taking effect on Monday. One will make destroying an ATM a first-degree property damage charge. Another makes stealing an ATM or its contents a Class C felony. Also, school resource officers will be allowed to bring firearms into schools and on school buses. And drivers in the Show Me State must be hands-free when using electronic devices on the road. Gas prices in the area are on the decline as we near the Labor Day holiday weekend. Stateside average in Missouri is $3.53 per gallon of regular unleaded. That's according to AAA. In Kansas, the average is $3.59. Oklahoma's average is $3.56, and Arkansas sits at only $3.44 a gallon. The Miami, Oklahoma Chamber of Commerce today hosted a crab dinner with a side of networking. Cracking Crab event lets local professionals get to know each other while enjoying some seafood. Officials say it's a fun way to learn about new opportunities.
Crab, shrimp, it's a whole Cajun, little Mardi Gras flavor tonight. So we began this a couple of years ago, just as a fun evening for our members and a fundraiser for the chamber.
Different businesses, different folks come out here to all get together to have a meal, have a few drinks, and share some fun.
The event was hosted at the Miami Civic Center. A local art gallery today donated to the Ronald McDonald House of the Four States. Representatives from local Color Art Gallery presented the $1,200 donation at the Ronald McDonald House. The money comes from the gallery's spring open house, showcasing the work of 18 award-winning local artists. The pieces were auctioned off for the fundraiser. Walmart wants to invite parents to bring in their kids to have their vision tested. Kids can get everything from routine eye exams to prescriptions for glasses, sunglasses, and contact lenses. Parents can also learn more about the importance of eye exams for children, as well as sharing helpful tips for protecting vision and identifying vision problems.
Nearsightedness, especially with tablet use and cell phone use increasing, nearsightedness is also on the rise. So that tends to present in about third grade most often. Can be sooner, can be later, but it's definitely a big problem for many people worldwide and also here at home in the U.S.
August is National Children's Eye Health and Safety Month. The only medical facility in the city of Knoll, Missouri is taking action to support its patients who will lose their health insurance once the Tyson plant closes in October. KOAM's Fernanda Silva has the story.
Nurse practitioner Carrie Madison was able to gain the trust of patients from the small clinic she works at in Knoll, Missouri, even of those who don't speak the same language and have a harder time communicating their health concerns.
End up doing lots of like pantomime and pointing to things, and it's pretty amazing sometimes how much you can communicate just by sitting and listening to them.
Now Madison is heartbroken to see some of her patients losing their jobs and also their health insurance as the Tyson plant closes its doors in October.
Many of the patients that we are seeing currently don't really have a plan. They know that they're going to have to move probably. There's a lot of uncertainty in their life, quite a bit of stress.
Knowing uncertainties might lie ahead, the OCH clinic is giving its patients to take medications, prescriptions for 90 days with one refill. That means the patients will have up to 6 months of medication. The clinic is also making sure their labs are current.
We're trying to make sure that they're covered as much as we can as they're moving to different parts of the United States.
Even if they stay here after Tyson, we'll be here to help them out.
At the beginning of the month, Tyson announced plans to close its plants in Knoll. There, the company employs about 1,500 people.
About 50% of the clinic's patients are related to Tyson directly or indirectly. Besides helping them with medications and exams, the clinic is also offering other types of support.
If they're going to lose their insurance after Tyson, then we can help them with their Medicaid application if they are planning on staying here so they can continue that care with us. And not just with us, but Medicaid will help them anywhere that they go.
In Knoll, Fernanda Silva, KOAM News.
The OCH manager encourages their patients who might lose their health insurance to visit with them before the closing of the plant for referrals, prescriptions, and lab draws. Well, coming up, experts explain how to make the transition from high school to college. It's supposed to be a time of exciting new beginnings, but as many incoming freshmen prepare to face a bunch of new adult responsibilities in a brand new environment, Sometimes the stress can be too much to bear. Fox News' Ted Linder takes a look at what academic experts say students and their parents can do to make the transition to college easier.
Let's face it, a new school year can be tough for anyone, especially incoming college freshmen who face social and academic hurdles in their last few years of high school, all because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
I do think there will be some long-term impact of being isolated and at home during COVID and not in a school in-person learning environment.
Factor in that many students are also leaving their homes to enter a new environment, and it can make transitioning into their first year of college even more overwhelming. This stress can lead to more serious health problems like anxiety and depression if freshmen don't feel connected when they arrive on campus. Data collected by the National Institutes of Health finds between 12 and 50% of college students, quote, meet criteria for one or more common mental disorders.
College is about developing as a whole person, and it's a whole experience that involves academic success, but also personal, social, professional success.
Academic experts like Sarah Klein of the Stevens Institute of Technology says college faculty and staff are trained to offer student support, but the students themselves need to feel comfortable getting involved and asking for help.
You do need to have a social network for support, for feeling engaged on campus. You need to make some connections.
And as freshmen work to develop new connections, Klein says parents should support these developments from a distance.
And I think sometimes parents and families, while well-intentioned, are so involved in the process that what they're doing is actually not allowing their student the freedom and the independence to get out there on their own.
Ted Lindner, Fox News.
Well, new school year is bringing concerns about disguised vaping products. Authorities are warning parents and school leaders about some vaping products that are coming into the U.S. illegally. They say the products are altered to look like school supplies such as highlighters, USB drives, and ballpoint pens. According to reports, some of the vaping products are in sweet fruit flavors like mango, blueberry, and strawberry banana. Meteorologist Sam Lane is next with a complete look at the forecast. And later, as high schools in Missouri get set for the football season kickoff tomorrow night, we'll check in with the Nevada Griffins.
Well, of course, it's been a hot week across the entire four-state area. We just have one more day to go before the relief arrives in the form of a cold front this weekend. But right now, it's still pretty mild out there at Seneca, Missouri, at Indigo Sky Casino and Resort. A pretty fair evening out there. This afternoon, we made it up to the century mark again in Joplin. 77 was the low. Of course, the averages are 89 and 67. Only 2 degrees away from the record set back in 1947. And of course, we're starting to fall way further and further behind on the rainfall. So far this summer, we had 2 days in June that were above 100, and then in July we ended up with 5, and so far for August we have had 6, and we're probably going to have one more added to that before all is said and done. We still have an excessive heat warning in effect for southwest Missouri, southeastern Kansas. That goes until 10 o'clock on Friday evening, and temperatures right now range anywhere from the lower 80s to the east, like in Monette with 82, but still 89 in Fort Scott and in Nevada, 88 in Yates Center, and 84 degrees down in Nowata. But the dew points, they are now up again, especially in the Oklahoma, with dew points generally in the mid-70s, and then you start getting into the really muggy 80s down in northeastern Oklahoma. And of course, that's very soupy out there on the dew point tracker. And as a result, your feel-like temperatures feel much hotter down in Oklahoma, with 103 in Veneta right now, 105 in Grove, and 103 in Jay, but a little bit cooler off to the east in Mount Vernon, where it currently feels like 90 degrees. Now tomorrow, with the heat and the humidity still in place, it's still going to feel like 110 plus in Oklahoma and in parts of southwestern Missouri, but most areas will feel definitely over 100 degrees. Then as we go into Saturday, it gets a little bit better up to the north, but still feeling like well over 100 for most of the area and close to 110 down in northeast Oklahoma. But on Sunday, totally different story. It's going to feel like it's in the 70s up to the north, still 90s down to the south, but hey, we'll take 90s over 100 any day. The drought index came out today, and of course, we're still dealing with a large, widespread drought across the entire area, with the exception of McDonald County, Delaware County, and Benton County. And especially hard hit right now is Chautauqua, Elk, and Montgomery counties with exceptional drought still ongoing. Hopefully we'll get some rain in here, but unfortunately for the next 36 hours, rain chances are going to remain on the low side. But if we look at the long-range forecast as we go into Monday, some places could pick up maybe a few tenths, especially up towards the north, lighter amounts up towards the north and west. So not everybody's going to get rain, but hopefully enough folks will get some. Ridge of high pressure is going to retreat back to the west. That's going to allow the storm systems to rotate around it, and that's going to increase our rain chances and also drive our temperatures down as we head through the rest part of the weekend. All right, let's take a look at the next 7 days. We're looking at the heat again tomorrow across the area. If I can get my click, there we go. And we can see temperatures in the 80s or upper 70s tonight, and then near 100 tomorrow. And then if we take a look at the highs tomorrow, my little clicker is not working. All right, let's try that. We're going to be in the hot. We're going to be in the heat with 100 tomorrow, and then of course cooler as we head towards the weekend.
I like the sound of that. Cooler as we head towards the weekend. That's
Cooler
what we
is
can
better.
handle.
Yes.
All right, thanks, Sam. Well, the extreme summer heat across the country is forcing several schools to take extra steps to protect students. At one Oklahoma school district, that even means no playtime outside. Simone Tamajani has more.
Around lunchtime, silence at a school playground is not normal.
My daughter is very upset that she hasn't been able to go outside for the last couple of days. That's her favorite part, is recess.
Bixby School Superintendent Rob Miller says preventative measures like this are now a necessity when the heat index is so high during so much of the school day.
We really have to be intentional. Our principals know, and they track that heat index so that if it gets above 100, we're not taking kids outside, so we don't have recess or outdoor activities during those particular days.
The decisions are backed up by medicine.
The people that are very young as well as the very old are the most at risk for heat-related illness.
In fact, EMSA Tulsa tells us since July 23rd, their Tulsa metro area units have responded to 6 calls for heat-related illness in kids under the age of 14.
Elementary and intermediate schools throughout Green Country are having to invoke special recess policies, like either having them early in the morning or just having them indoors altogether. And they're also encouraging parents to send their kids to school with reusable bottles, and if they're walking, sunglasses and sunblock will definitely help.
Having 100-degree days, not unprecedented certainly, but having a string of 5 or 6 in a row does get to be pretty oppressive. And it causes us to kind of look and make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep kids safe.
In Tulsa, some elementary schoolers can get a short outdoor recess during parts of the morning. Mike Cation says he's told specifically when his child can get to play outside.
When it's this hot, they have a red flag system basically saying we're not going outside right now. So it's just one of those things. It's basic health needs for the kids, making sure they're not getting overheated and making sure on top of it that they're also getting hydrated, because even in an air-conditioned classroom, it's still really, really hot.
Well, coming up, trying to make airports safer.
A new report says near collisions in airplanes happen far more than the public hears about. And now the Federal Aviation Administration is holding meetings across the country to find out why. I'm Caroline Shively in Washington. I'll have that story coming up.
Southwest Airlines is making changes to early bird check-in. Southwest is the only major U.S. airline where seating is first come, first serve, rather than assigned seating. Typically, Southwest passengers can pay an extra fee to be able to check in to their flight and get an earlier boarding slot. But according to Southwest, as of August 15th, early bird check-in is being limited to certain flights, routes, and times. Well, yesterday, the FAA announced it would funnel millions of dollars to airports to cut down on close calls and near collisions. It's an alarming trend that the New York Times says happens far more often than we realized. Now the FAA is holding safety meetings at 90 airports, showing how widespread the problem has become. Fox's Caroline Shively reports from Washington.
It's only an animation, but the danger was very real in Austin this February as a Southwest Airlines jet barreled down a runway and a FedEx cargo plane nearly landed on top of it.
Southwest aboard. FedEx is on the go.
Senator Ted Cruz presented the recreation at a Senate committee hearing earlier this year, showing how the two aircraft came within 100 feet of each other.
What can we do
to make sure that doesn't happen again.
That's the central question at a series of runway safety meetings the Federal Aviation Administration is holding between now and the end of September at 90 airports across the country. This follows an aviation safety summit in March.
More mistakes than usual are happening across the system, on runways, at gates when planes are pushing back, in control towers, and on flight decks.
The New York Times reports that near misses between airplanes happen far more often than the public knows. At least 46 close calls involving commercial airlines occurred last month alone.
The problem is on the rise, and it is a combination of various factors. And like you said, one of them could very well be pilot fatigue. They're overworked. The pilots are overworked.
On Wednesday, the FAA announced it would award $5 million to Reagan National Airport outside D.C. to redo its taxiways and hold bays.
It's part of a $121 million effort at airports across the country to reconfigure runways and make collisions less likely. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox News.
Up next, how Lego is making its bricks more accessible for children with visual impairments. Lego is selling Braille bricks to the public for the first time. The company says these special bricks have studs that correspond to the numbers and letters in the Braille system. Printed version of the symbol or letter is also shown beneath the studs. The set is available in English and French, with more languages to be released next year. These bricks are also fully compatible with other sets. 30 more minutes of news, weather, and sports coming your way. What investigators from Oklahoma found when they searched the former home of the BTK serial killer. Plus, President Trump surrendered today to authorities in Georgia. We'll have the reaction. Authorities in Oklahoma believe a notorious serial killer may be behind the 1976 disappearance of a 16-year-old. On Tuesday, crews dug up land where Dennis Rader's home once stood. As Jocelyn Schifferdecker reports, the convicted killer, known as BTK, may be connected to other unsolved cases in Missouri and Kansas.
This was located, and you can see by its age and color, it appears to be a pantyhose ligature.
Osage, Oklahoma Sheriff Eddie Verdon pulled this piece of evidence from a brown paper bag. Evidence he says his investigators found buried deep in the ground on this plot in Park City back in April. The land is where serial killer Dennis Rader's home once stood. Tuesday, the investigators were back in Park City looking for evidence that might link Rader to a cold case Verdon's had since 1976. He says this time deputies found more items buried deep in the ground.
It was very, very clear someone had created this hole and had refilled it with a different material. Took some precaution to try to maybe protect some of those items.
Verdon says he reopened the missing person case of Cynthia Kinney in December of last year because he found reason to believe it's connected to Rader.
Dennis Rader is our #1 suspect on this disappearance.
Verdon explains there's too much evidence that connects Rader with Pawhuska to ignore. Most notably, he tells us in a book Rader was writing, there's a project titled Bad Laundry Day, dated in 1976. His notation showed this would be in Chapter 9, the chapter where he was going to put murders.
There's no known murder, #1, in a laundromat in Wichita, but #2, the notation out of town again until things cool down means he was out of town when that happened.
Verdon says he's going to continue his investigation and won't stop until he runs out of leads or solves the almost 50-year-old case.
Our victim needs justice and the family needs closure.
Items recovered on the vacant lot will be examined to figure out if they are relevant to the ongoing investigations. Well, a day after meeting on stage, GOP presidential hopefuls are trying to build on their momentum following debate night yesterday. The 8 candidates on stage sparred over several issues. Former President Donald Trump, who declined to debate. The next GOP primary debate is scheduled for a month from now on September 27th at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in California. In a historic first, we've seen a mugshot of a former president. Donald Trump made a whirlwind trip to Atlanta to be booked and fingerprinted and to have his picture taken. Fox's Rebecca Castor has more from Atlanta's Fulton County Jail, where the 45th president was treated like any other defendant.
It's the fourth time this year former President Donald Trump has had to surrender on criminal charges. It's an historic scene becoming almost routine. Just a short time after this mugshot was taken, the first for a former president, Donald Trump headed home from Atlanta's Fulton County Jail after surrendering to authorities Thursday night. And he had a few words for them right before he left.
What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it.
Trump had no choice. He had to show up in person at the jail so notorious it's called out in rap songs. Just like the other 18 defendants in this case. There he was booked on charges he tried to hijack the state's 2020 election.
You should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that.
Trump had to post a $200,000 bond for his release. And earlier Thursday, he sacked the attorney who negotiated that amount and the virtual gag order that came with it. His new lead lawyer is Stephen Sadow, who in the past represented high-profile clients, but this is an entirely different challenge.
2 of the prosecutions are brought by elected state district attorneys. They're not going to be bound by any kind of tradition or norm or custom that we followed for so many years in this country to let former presidents alone.
Security around the jail was tight for hours before the former president arrived. Hundreds of protesters and supporters turned out for the GOP frontrunner. Trump has not yet entered a plea in this case, but says he did nothing wrong. The DA wants Trump and the 18 other co-defendants arraigned early next month. In Atlanta, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
The head of the Wagner mercenaries who tried to overthrow Russian President Vladimir Putin is presumed dead after an airplane he was riding in crashed in Russia yesterday. Russian officials say Yevgeny Prigozhin was aboard a private jet that took off from Moscow. Wagner social media channels claim the jet was shot down. There's been no official word from the Kremlin. President Biden says he was not surprised. A bit later, we take a closer look at the pros and cons of having 4-day school weeks.
Well, the heat and humidity just keep hanging around, but we do have one more day of that, and then some relief arrives just in time for your weekend. Let's take a look outside right now at Seneca, Missouri, Indigo Sky Casino and Resort. Things are looking pretty nice down that way as across the entire 4-state area. We did make it up to 100 degrees in Joplin today, which was only 2 degrees away from the record. And normals are 89 and 67. Wouldn't that be nice? But we're going to have to wait a little bit longer before that starts to become the norm. Right now, we're looking at the number of days in summer of 2023 above 100. 2 in June, we had 5 in July. And so far in August, we've had 6. And so it's been quite of a stretch of hot weather here in the 4 states, and it's continuing. We have the excessive heat warning still in effect for southwest Missouri, southeastern Kansas until 10 o'clock tomorrow. And that will probably also include Oklahoma and Arkansas tomorrow morning, and then they'll issue that extending on into about 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. Right now, temperatures are in the low 80s to the east, like in Monette, as well as Cassville with 81, but it's still 88 in Neodesha and Chanute, as well as Parsons. And we're going to see temperatures dropping through the 80s into the 70s by tomorrow morning. And that's because these dew points are in the 70s, and you can't get below the dew point. But look at this oppressive dew point down in Oklahoma in the low 80s, and that is what has contributed to it feeling so terrible outside. Dew point tracker basically soupy and above, and as a result it's going to feel, well, right now it feels like 100 right now still in Veneta, 99 in Grove, 97 in Commerce, a little bit cooler up to the north in Iola where it currently feels like 88. Now tomorrow it's going to be all back. We're going to see temperatures feeling like 110 plus in northeastern Oklahoma, low 100s elsewhere, and then as we go into Saturday, a little bit of an improvement. Still over 110 down in Oklahoma, but low 100s elsewhere. And then finally on Sunday, it's going to feel like the actual closer to the temperature. So that's going to be an improvement. Unfortunately, we are still in the drought, especially out towards the west in Chautauqua, Elk, and Montgomery counties. So the drought is still hanging on. And unfortunately, this weekend with the rain, we're not really expecting a whole lot of precipitation. So the drought looks like it's going to hang on even through the weekend. Low rain chances for the next 36 hours. And if we take a look at the rainfall forecast, most of the heavier rain is expected to be up towards the north and east, up towards Nevada and Stockton, and lesser amounts, unfortunately, back to the south and west. here's that pesky ridge of high pressure. It's finally going to retreat back to the west, and that's what's going to allow the storm systems to start coming around the corner, and that will introduce some cloudiness, cooler temperatures, and also some rain chances, which is desperately, desperately needed. So tonight, lows in the mid-70s, and then tomorrow afternoon, a repeat of today. Temperatures close to 100 degrees in the afternoon, isolated storms at best. And then as we go into Friday night, Saturday morning, scattered showers moving across the area. And then Saturday afternoon, thunderstorms again possible with highs near 90. And then as we go into Saturday night and Sunday, temperatures in the 70s with a pretty good chance of showers and storms. And look at this forecast, Tanya. I think you're going to like it. Temperatures only in the 80s, and look at those lows on Wednesday and Thursday morning.
I'm digging that. In the
Me too.
80s all week.
Yeah.
50s at night.
I know.
That's going to be chilly.
Exactly.
Love this.
Get a blanket. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Sam. Well, coming up in sports, one of the Chiefs' best players continues his contract holdout. Plus, a couple local high school football teams get prepared to open their season tomorrow night. John Dales has those stories and more.
At this time tomorrow evening, all the Week 1 high school football games in the area will either be wrapping up or just finished. That's right, there's only one more sleep before players can lace up their cleats, strap on their shoulder pads, and get into real game action. One of the teams with a home game to begin the season's Nevada, the Tigers, out on the field early this morning for one final walkthrough before tomorrow's season opener against Springfield Catholic. They're coming off back-to-back trips to the district championship game, and the team feels ready, even though Mother Nature has thrown it some curveballs this week.
This week's been interesting with the heat situation. We practiced in the morning Monday and Tuesday. We did get out on the field for a little bit Wednesday when the heat dipped a little bit here. It was a little bit overcast, so we got out on the field a little bit on Wednesday, and then, of course, had the morning walk through today on Thursday because just didn't want to risk the heat being so high that we couldn't get out on the field and do what we need to do. So it's been an odd week of practice, but I'm sure everybody's dealt with that, and I think we're pretty prepared to play.
We've really just been focusing on getting everything to crisp because we have a lot of young guys who are having to step up and who didn't get as much playing time last year since we lost so many seniors. So we've just been really focusing on hitting the technique hard and just making sure everything's working to a T, and you have to make sure everything's going and we're all moving as one unit.
McDonald County is another local school that begins its season at home tomorrow night. Mustangs start things off with a conference game against Mount Vernon, though this afternoon they got one final tune-up before that season opener. McDonald County out on the field this afternoon, going through some work with their offense and special teams, again before tomorrow night's kickoff. Mustangs come off a 6-5 record in 2022. McDonald County lost their season opener on the road last year to Mount Vernon. This year, both of those squads get together again to open the season.
Our kids, especially our seniors, our leaders, they understand it's kind of their last shot. And so we've had a lot of urgency throughout the summer and the early part of practice here and throughout camp in July. We know that our schedule is going to be tough, and it starts with a really tough one against Mount Vernon tomorrow night. And we know that they're going to come in really well coached. They play hard. They've got a lot of tradition in that program. And we know we're going to have to bring our best tomorrow.
We obviously had some key players go off to college, obviously. But we got some lower classmen coming up and backing up those guys. And we've made a lot of progress. We have a lot more in this year than we did last year at this point of the year. And I think we're in a pretty good spot.
And in professional football, tonight, the final week of preseason action kicks off. The Chiefs don't play until Saturday. Right now, though, a lot of the focus around that team is about All-Pro defensive end Chris Jones holding out and not joining the team. He's got 1 year left on his 4-year, $80 million contract. Recently was asked by a fan on Twitter when he joined the team. Jones simply responded, Week 8. Then said he could afford to give up the $1 million a week game check. For head coach Andy Reid, a player like Chris Jones is invaluable, but he's ready for the possibility of starting the year without him.
There's been no communication, so I don't know what's going to go there. But whatever happens, happens. I mean, not there. The game goes on, right? So that's how it works.
That's all for sports. We're back with more news after this.
Could a shorter week be coming to your children's school? Some schools across the country are already trying it out. Fox's John Saucier reports on the pros and cons behind the idea.
Ask most kids and they'd probably agree a 4-day school week would be great. Some schools across the country are putting that plan into action. Research from Oregon State University shows more than 2,000 schools across 26 states have switched to the 4-day school week, and that number is expected to grow. Parents are divided on the topic.
I think it would be good for 4 days. I think that just gives them more time, to do extracurriculum, sports and stuff like that.
I think that in our country we've done schools inclusive we've done it right for hundreds of years, and I think that why would we change something that has been going right for so long?
One major benefit of the 4-day school week, teacher retention and recruitment. At a time when teacher shortages are widespread across the country, the benefit of a shortened work week is appealing for many.
Honestly, the biggest thing for me is just to be able to rejuvenate, be able to catch up on schoolwork, be able to get the rest that I need in order to come back on Monday and be prepared for everything.
But what happens on the 5th day? A challenge of the 4-day school week is what will children do when not in school? For families with younger children, it could mean having to shell out more money for childcare.
What type of childcare will be available for families, especially those that typically have a 5-day work week? Many of the school corporations really are offering childcare, but at a cost. And so for families who are low income, are they able to pay those kinds of costs?
Some schools that are implementing the 4-day week are also extending the school day to help make up for the lost day in the classroom. John Saucier, Fox News.
Well, coming up, it's a tradition at a lot of state fairs. We're going to check out the butter statues unveiled at New York's State Fair. Turns out you can get pretty creative with 800 pounds of butter. Just take a look at this year's butter creations for the great New York State Fair. Jim Victor and Marie Pelton have been creating the New York State Fair butter sculpture for more than 2 decades. While it may look good enough to take a bite, this butter is not meant to be eaten. That's our time for tonight. Thanks for joining us. We leave you with video of a panda celebrating its 17th birthday. Have a great night and an even better tomorrow.